this area that is related to audio. Maybe it's music, speech, or other kind of audios like animal sounds, bird sounds, etc. And but rarely I got an opportunity to my share or discuss this topic in an open flat platform. So I'm very grateful to the organizer for giving me this opportunity today. And okay, let me. Very good morning to all the participants. I believe all of you are in keeping good health, and I will make sure that today's session. So most of you, majority of you, I think you won't be knowing much detail of inside of automatic speech recognition. So it may look like a black box for you, like what from where it starts, where it ends. So my objective of this presentation will be that I will give you an idea what things are there inside, but I will not go into the very much detail because there are so many areas which are related to this automatic speech recognition, and it requires a lot of time to understand to go through the things. So what I will do is I will open up that black box and we'll give you some idea like things, what are the things inside. And if you want to continue further, whatever things I will do, taking those things, you will be definitely get an idea or a path how to proceed. So that much assurance I will give you. Let me start with the presentation. Can you see the screen?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Okay, wait. Now.
No, ma'am. Now, yeah, ma'am. Now it is visible.
So the topic of today's presentation is automatic speech recognition, or we can say it as a speech recognition. These are the contents which I will be covering at. So I want to go briefly and touching all the topics related to this area. What is automatic speech recognition? What is natural language processing? Then how natural language processing and ASR are connected? What are the different applications of ASR and the techniques? Like what are the things involved inside automatic speech recognition if you want to do some research or application development in this area. So speech is a very normal way of communication. Like whenever we want to communicate with someone, the most natural form of communication is through speech. Uh, so it is a speech is actually a combination of meaningful sounds. If you make a meaningless sounds, the other person will not understand. So only when the sounds are combined in a meaningful way, it becomes speech. The other person will be able to understand. So that is how human communicates. But if you see any application like computing application, maybe it's a gadget or computer or application software applications, how do we communicate with that application as a user? So usually what we do is we go for a mouse click or entering the command and so on. So that is how we communicate with the computers. But if we can, so that actually becomes a barrier, means many of the people won't be comfortable. It needs some training, like what commands to click or how to interact with the gadget. But if you can imagine an application where it's like you can communicate with that just as you communicate with the other human, so through the natural language or through the spoken commands, so such kind of application will be very useful even for a layman who is not very who is not very technically trained to use the gadget. But if the user interface is provided through the spoken command, it will be very useful, and more people will be comfortable to use the gadgets. So that is how speech becomes important as a way of communication with a computer, that is human and computer interface. Speech is one of the very important. Speech could become one of the very important user interface. What is automatic speech recognition? Automatic speech recognition is a process of accurately and efficiently converting the speech audio into sequence of recognized words. So the objective here is that you take a input speech, that is the voice, which is a spoken utterance, and you convert it into a set of sequence of words or sentence or letters or commands. It depends. Actually, it depends based on the application. Now you need to understand, like yesterday, Dr. Roshan Fernandez has given a very elaborated talk on natural language processing. So now you have understood what is natural means, what is natural language processing, how important it is. But then people get confused between the natural language processing and speech recognition. So I want to just give an idea, like natural language processing and speech recognition are related to each other. They have to go like together, but they are different. So how they are different? Natural language processing is processes a text as the input. So you are giving a text as an input to a natural language processing. And what is the objective of natural language processing? So it's a set of algorithm. What it deals with? Those algorithm deals with, like, given a text as an input, what are the tokens inside the text? What is the syntax that is there? What is the grammar? Or what is the intent in the what is the intention of the speaker? What things has been spoken? How to process all those things? So all the algorithms are related to that. Understanding the language, understanding the intention, understanding the grammar, understanding the words, and so on. But now, so what we do is to make things simple in natural language processing, we assume that the text is the input. Because when text is the input, for example, let us say from a computer science point of view, if text is the input, how do you store a text? You store a text in a data type, that is string. So your input is a string actually for natural language processing. And whatever you do, you are handling a string. You are identifying the tokens inside that, and you are analyzing the 1 gram, 2 gram combinations of words and trying to understand what is being spoken. Now, in natural language processing, what happens is it's not the text that is the input, but it is a vocal utterance or the speech. Audio is the input. So you know audio files which we have. But how do you actually read and process that as a computer science programmer? How do you read a audio file and process that? So how do you get the content which is there inside an audio file and try to see what is being spoken? Like if I say "How are you" is a sentence, so that is recorded in an audio file. You read an audio file and there are numbers inside the audio files, so you just try to see what is it HOWR, what is that? How are you is being spoken. That is the objective in automatic speech recognition. So whenever you learn about a technique, any algorithm, the first thing that you should clearly understand is what is the input that you are going to handle. Okay. So if you are clear in that, what is the input and what is the output from a computer science point of view, I'm saying, you actually understand the objective of that thing, the objective of the technique. So the objective of NLP is it takes a text, tries to get all the processing of the text, and tries to understand what is the matter, and based on that, it will prepare a response. Whatever it depends on the application, how should be the response. But automatic speech recognition, speech is the input. So the whole objective is you understand the content of the speech, means the type of the input that you're handling is different. Okay. So from there, now what will be the output here? It may be a text also. So if it is a text, like for example, "Hi, how are you" is what is being spoken, and you understand, try to understand what is there inside, and you understand, okay, it is "Hi, how are you." Understand means in the letter it is HIHOWRAREYOU. That is a thing that is, but you don't know exactly that it is a greeting or what the user want to say. All those things we are not going in the detail inside ASR. So ASR, the only thing is, okay, what is being spoken as an audio file, you convert it to text. Okay. Now, once it is given as a text like "Hi, how are you," then that is given to NLP. Now, NLP will understand that it is someone is greeting you. So how you should respond? "I'm fine." So that is what NLP will try to understand and we'll try to derive from that and prepare a response for that. So this difference you should understand. If you want to have a very good ASR application, the post processing of that must use NLP. Okay, but NLP could be used as an independent if the text is the input. But if you want really a sophisticated application which uses a spoken input as a command instead of text, like if you say chatbot we give a text as an input, and if you're comfortable with that kind of interaction, it's fine. NLP is fine. But if you want to make it more advanced, then instead of giving text as an input for a chatbot, we can speak with the chatbot, and chatbot has to respond. So when I start speaking, NLP is not enough there. We must have ASR also. So ASR will take your voice input and make it convert it into a text and give it to NLP, and then NLP will further process. So you should understand the difference between ASR and NLP before we proceed further. Now, in this topic, NLP has been clearly means discussed yesterday. So I have nothing to add in that. But in this topic, the only thing I'll be focusing is automatic speech recognition. Uh, so as I said, it's a black box now. You don't know what's there inside this. So I'm going to open it and you can get a flavor of what things are there inside ASR. I think by now you must have understood like how automatic speech recognition could be useful, because any application you think of, instead of giving the commands through mouse click or touch screen or text as an input, instead of that, if you can interact with the voice commands, that is speech, then that's an application of automatic speech recognition system. So some of the specific things like translation of voice to text. Translation of voice to text, you are like all of you are very much familiar with this application. If you open a YouTube video and you set the caption on, you can see that whatever is being spoken is translated into a text. So that is an application of speech recognition. It has to be done. It's not done manually. It has to be done. If it is done manually, it's a very huge task. But if it is done automatically, it will become more smooth and it can be applied to all the applications. Then we have interactive voice response system. Interactive voice response system is like you call to a customer care. You have experienced that as soon as you call to customer care, they start saying, okay, press 1, press 2, press 3, like that. And then you have to wait until until they announce the options that you need. You have to wait till then, impatient. So instead of that, if you just call to a customer care and say, this is my problem directly, and the computer on the other side can handle your sentence and will direct you accordingly. Like you say that I have a problem with my recharge. Let us say in the dish TV, I have a problem with the recharge. So you just call and say I have a problem with the recharge. So they will directly, the algorithm on the other side will directly understand your sentence and it will direct you to the corresponding department. So that has to be happen automatically. That is one application of speech recognition, specific application. Applications in healthcare, there are many. We will see in the next slides. The hands-free computing means, that's what I told. Anything like you have to use your hands to give the commands, mouse click, touch screen. And you know that nowadays it is also not very safe to touch the surface. So if you could have any application that you can think, if you can have use those applications, if you could imagine just through the voice command, your hands will be safe touching the surface. So that is one application of automatic speech recognition. Then automatic translation from one language to another. This is obviously going to be very useful, at least for a country like India. We face so problems with when we travel to some other place with the language. So if you have an application which can convert any Indian language sentence to any other Indian languages, so that is one of the very sophisticated application we can think of in the area of speech recognition. This is very like I have highlighted very few applications which I could think of, but it is unlimited. I can say automatic speech recognition applications are unlimited because anything that human can do operate through the by operating through the voice, we can think of an application which will do that. Let us try to now and get into the inside the ASR. So to start with, understand your input. So as I said, the input to the ASR is a voice, the speech signal. So now you need to understand speech signal because we computer science students are not familiar with this part of the thing. This is where we are like, it's not, we are not comfortable with. We are comfortable with handling the strings, the numbers, the floats, and so on, and different data structures, kinds of data structure like linked list. We are very much familiar with. So text input, image input is also to certain extent we can understand. But when it comes to speech, audio, how it looks like, what is it actually, that we are a bit hesitant to. So we are a bit hesitant to get inside into this ASR because to start with, we should understand the data, and there we face the problem. Now, speech audio is a sound that is recorded in a particular environment. So we are dealing with a recorded sound because either it has to be streamed or it has to be recorded. Because otherwise, if you don't record, it won't be stored inside the computer. So you can write a program only that is there inside the computer, or somewhere it has to be stored in somewhere in the memory. Now, when we speak, the sound will be in the form of analog signal. So, analog signal, the signal, like as it's a continuous variation in the air pressure as we breathe in and breathe out, the different parts of the lungs and vocal cords, they collaborate with each other to produce a sound, and they vibrate. So as they vibrate, there will be variation in the air pressure, and as it varies, you get a signal actually. That signal is a continuous signal. Now you should understand like what is continuous signal or what is a discrete signal. Continuous signal means it varies. Thing varies as time changes continuously. At every point of time, the value changes. So as time changes, the value changes. It's a continuous variation. Now that when you record through a microphone, that signal will be converted into a digital signal. So digital signal and analog signal, what is the difference? Again, analog signal is a continuous variation. Digital signal is discrete. Means you can't store a thing which is continuous inside the memory because we don't have a data structure for that. We have to store it discrete in a discrete way. Now, for example, here, if you see this waveform, which is drawn in a very light gray color, it shows that it's a function that is continuous. If it is an analog signal, which is continuous in nature, now when we store that, we want to store this. Okay, we want to store this wave in the digital form that is in the computer. So it has to be discretized. Now what do we do is instead of see from here to here, if you see, we have so many points. So data value exists at every point of time. So x-axis is time and y-axis is the corresponding value. So we refer to the value as the amplitude. So it's a continuous variation of air pressure. The air pressure is referred as voltage, that is amplitude values. So here there is a continuous value existing because it's a continuous function, but we are ignoring from this to this, we are ignoring, we are not storing, we are just taking one point. So we define a sampling period. We define a small sampling period which can be like 0.01 second, 0.02 second. So we take only one value at every 0.01 second. If the sampling period is 0.01 second, we take only one value at every 0.01 second. So all the in-between values from here to here, all those in-between values we are ignoring. We are not storing it anywhere. So that's why this process is also called as sampling. That means, let us say you have infinite values from this point to this point. Okay. From that, we are storing only one value. Beginning from here to here, you have many values. We are storing only one value. So at every discrete position, that every sampling period, we take one sample value and that will be stored inside the computer in the digital form. So that is how analog signal is converted into a digital signal, and this process of converting analog signal to digital signal is called as a sampling technique, sampling process. So there are two parameters here. One is a sampling period, the interval at which you are taking the sample, and then we have called as a sampling rate. So sampling rate, if you invert that sampling period, 1 by t is nothing but fs, or 1 by fs is nothing but uh, t. For example, like if you can choose at one, if you speak for a second, 1 second of duration, and you have a continuous waveform in 1 second duration, and you want to store that inside the computer. So what you do is you decide that in 1 second you are going to take 8,000 values. Okay, so 8,000 will be the sampling rate. That means in 1 second we are taking 8,000 sample values. That so 8,000 will be the sampling rate for that. Now, what is the sampling period for that? If 8,000 is a sampling rate, then sampling period will be 1 by 8,000. Some microseconds or picoseconds, it will come like that. So this is what how. So here two things are there. One is continuous waveform, analog signal. So when we study the theory of this processing the speech and all in digital signal processing, they refer to it as x of t as a continuous for representing that it is a function of time. As time changes, the value changes, and it is x of t is a continuous function. Okay, but when it is converted into a digital signal, it is discretized. So now it's not a function of time, it's a function of a number, sampling number, that is n, x of n. So as n varies, x of n changes. For example, n equal to 1 denotes the first sample value, n equal to 2 denotes the second sample value, n equal to 3 denotes the third sample value, and so on. Now, see, now it becomes x of n. You should please just focus on this x of n. X of n is a discrete function, or when it is a discrete function, it's nothing but, for computer science, what is x of n? X of n is nothing but a array. It's an array of values where the array is indexed by the sample number. Okay, so x of 1 gives you the value of the array, which is the value of the first sample, and we refer to these values as sample value or amplitude value. So finally, how do you see a speech audio? You record the speech audio, you store it in the digital form inside the computer, and when you read it in your program, you're going to get x of n. X of n is a representation. X, we can say x is an array which is indexed by n, where n represents the sample number. So now you're going to handle an array. And what's the size of this array? It depends on the duration of the signal. So if you're handling a speech sound, usually the sampling rate will be 8,000 samples per second. Means if you read a 1 second sound, you're going to get 8,000 value. Now if I speak for a minute and you read that audio and you store it inside your array, then what will be the size of the array? It will be 8,000 into minute, that is 60 seconds. In 1 second, 8,000 value. In 60 seconds, how many values? It is 60 into 8,000. So many samples will be there in 1 minute of audio. That is for the speech sound. If you are handling a music sound has to be more fine. So what we do is, because when you reproduce that, you should not lose much of the information. So in that case, for a music sound, the sampling rate will be 44,100 samples per second. That means 1 second of audio, you will get 44,100 samples. Now, why I'm giving all these calculations to you? Because you should have an idea of what is a data structure that you're handling. You're handling an array, that's okay. But what is the size of the array? Like, you just imagine 1 minute of audio, it is around 4 lakhs of samples that you get. If you're handling a 1 hour of audio, what will be the size of the array? If you are handling 2 hours audio, what will be the size? So size of the array increases as your duration of speaking increases, the size of the array increases. So in the normal programming in the lab, for example, if there are students, they declare an array and they just make it maybe maximum 100. But while giving the values, you give at the most 10 values, not more than that. But now you're handling an audio file which is of the size 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs, or sometimes even I have seen 1 crore of data inside the array. So that is the data structure, that is the input that you have now. That we call as a speech signal. Okay? And now we need to process that to go further. So there are certain parameters this you may not like clearly get an idea, but because this discussion won't be complete if I mention about this, if I don't mention about this thing. That is, frequency is one parameter which defines any signal, not just sound, not just speech, not just music, any signal. So frequency, because when you plot a signal as a sound wave, as a wave in the form of a wave, it looks like a combination of different sinusoidal waveforms, of different frequencies. So there is a frequency associated with the signal. Frequency is nothing but, if you see here, if you enlarge this, if you just extend this over a time, how many cycles you get per second, how many times the cycle, number of cycles which is completed in 1 second is referred to as frequency. And there are two more terms that you should like. If you go into the deep depth of this, means if you go further anywhere you study, you will come across these two terms: time domain, frequency domain. So what is time domain? Time domain is when you represent the signal as a function of time, means as a function of time or as a function of these sample numbers. So you are saying, okay, at this sample number this is the amplitude, at this sample number this is the amplitude, the usual representation what I discussed. But to further process this data, if you represent the data as a in time domain signal, sometimes it's not, we will not get to know what is the content inside, or we will not get to extract the required parameters. So what we do is, we convert the time domain signal into something called as a frequency domain signal. It's just like you change the way of looking at the data. Same data, but change the way in which you look at the data. So in frequency domain, what we do is, we convert the time domain signal into a frequency domain signal using a technique which is called as discrete Fourier transform. You have in the mathematics subject, you have studied about Fourier transform. Same technique is used, but there we just study it as a numbers. We don't actually know the where it is exactly used. But when we apply that technique to this audio uh, signal, what we have, like as I told, x of n. If you apply discrete Fourier transform on that, you will get something called as x of m or x of f. That will give a different representation of the signal, which is, we call it a frequency domain. So here x of n is indexed by sample number, means x of n denotes the value of a sample of n, okay, sample number n. But in frequency domain, it will be x of f, where it says, okay, what is the value of the signal of frequency 1? What is the magnitude of the signal of frequency 2? As I told you, any signal is seen as a combination of different sinusoidal signals of different frequencies. So it's actually a mixture of that. It's like you just have a number. For example, if you say number 489, 489, it looks a big number, 489. But if you see, there are three digits there. One is a 4, one is a 8, one is a 9. And if you see the digit individually, it is same actually. All these numbers have the same value. But when we say it together, we say 480, 80, so and 9. The value of 9 is less compared to 8, compared to 4. So 4 has the highest value. Why it has a highest value? Because of the place where it is placed. It is in the place of 100. So that's why it has got a value. So you are actually taking the same digits and placing it in different places. And because of that, the value of the number changes. Same way, you imagine you have many unit-wise sinusoidal waves, sinusoidal wave of frequency 1, frequency 2, frequency 3, frequency 4, and so on, maybe frequency 1000. You make a mixture of that with different proportion. Like you make the magnitude of frequency 100 as high, you and frequency 2 as low, and you combine it. So you get one signal. Otherwise, or you make frequency of 50 as high, that means magnitude. I'm talking about the magnitude of the frequency. And magnitude means impact, the energy of that sinusoidal wave as high, and the impact of other signals as low, and you make a mixture. So like that, if you make combine all the sinusoidal waves of different frequencies at different proportion, you get a different signal. So that is one way of seeing that. So it's like you have digits 1, 2, 3, 4. You combine it and place it in a different position. You get one number. Or you have a number and you break it and you see, okay, 489 is there. Now you see what is the value of the 4, what is the value of the 8, what is the value of the 9. So you understand, okay, what are the components inside this number and how the number has been formed. So same way in the time domain signal, we assume that it's like a number 489 means it's a mixture of sinusoidal waves of different frequencies. That is the assumption that we are making. That time domain signal is a mixture of sinusoidal waves of different frequencies. Now you try to break it. You try to break it and you see, okay, what is the magnitude of the sinusoidal wave of frequency 1? What is the magnitude of the sinusoidal wave of frequency 2, frequency 3? So that is nothing but discrete Fourier transform. You try to break the signal into unit, different units, basic unit of the signal, and then you understand which sinusoidal wave of which frequency has a high magnitude. So if you represent the signal in a frequency domain, that will give you a different perception to understand what is that signal is all about. Like if you utter the letter A, maybe you have some frequency component which is very high, and if you utter a letter B, maybe it has other frequency component which is very high. So instead of just seeing this as set of sequence of numbers, amplitude values in time domain, now you see it as a sequence of frequencies so that you can understand more about the data. That is the whole purpose of converting the time domain signal into frequency domain signal. So this is the same thing I had told you. How does, from a computer science point of view, students' point of view, what is a sound actually inside the program? It is nothing but a sequence of sample values. And you can see when you plot it, it is actually discrete, but when you plot it together, it looks like a continuous, but it is not continuous because we can handle only discrete data in the computer, inside the computer. Analogs, in nature, we have analog signals, but when it comes inside this computer, it is always discrete. So here you just see this array in x1, x2, xn represent, it's actually represented as a vector. Mathematically, we refer to it as a vector, but in the program, you can just see this as a array. So size of the array is capital N, which denotes what is the total number of samples. If you see here, the total number of samples is somewhere around 200 something, maybe 210 or something like that. So that is the size of the array that you will be handling. This is one example that I have plotted for the sound for 1,000 samples. Same thing. It looks like continuous, but actually, if you see, it is a discrete signal. So here you can see I have zoomed it, the portion of that. So the star marks indicates the actual position where the value exists, and the gap between the two values is same. That is the sampling period. So this is the same signal has been converted into a frequency domain. So here, what is the thing that you need to observe is, here the x-axis represents the sample index and y-axis represents the amplitude. See how the sample index changes, how the amplitude changes. That is what is represented in the time domain signal. Here the x-axis represents different frequency component and y-axis represent different magnitude. So as frequency changes, how the magnitude changes. If you can observe here, the frequency component up to 1000 hertz, that is 1000 hertz, is having a high magnitude. Means this signal is made up of frequency component of 1000 hertz, and there is no much contribution of sinusoidal waves of frequency which is higher than 1000 hertz. So that is what the interpretation, and we take this data to process further and make it more meaningful. So this is about all about the how the data is represented, what the data looks like, and what are we going to deal with actually, what are we going to handle. So now we go into the next, the techniques, automatic speech recognition techniques. 3 steps. If you're familiar with machine learning, then you know that to do machine learning, it's actually machine learning kind of thing, machine learning application. Machine learning word was not there before. Machine learning word has been introduced recently. But actually, before if you see, there was a word that is artificial intelligence. And when artificial intelligence concept came into picture, it was the main intention with which the thing started was automatic speech recognition. Automatic speech recognition is the first kind of application that people thought we must have, and that they defined as artificial intelligence. But somewhere In between it stopped, maybe because of the data complexity could not be handled with the computing machine, the available computing machine. So it stopped in between. But then uh, after so many years, just because of the concept of like data, that is point of view means using data, you do something. Machine learning concept, and also like there is so much of advancement in parallel processing technique. Because of that, we again came back to all those artificial intelligence kind of applications, and we achieved a very great advancement in that, and we can see real-time applications in that. So why I'm saying that is because ASR, when we say automatic speech recognition, it is an application of machine learning. Means machine learning algorithm has to be used somewhere. Otherwise, because it has to understand what is being spoken. So three steps in any machine learning application, three steps. The data, what you have, first you process it to make it meaningful. Because machine learning algorithms can't handle the data, raw data as it is. For example, in this case, speech is the input. As I told, audio, when you read the input, you store that audio as a sequence of amplitude values. It's an array with numbers, or it's an array with frequency components. If you give this to machine learning algorithm, it will not be able to process it. So you do some basic processing. You make it simple, your data. So and then you extract meaningful features out of it, and then you go for the machine learning algorithms and get the required output. So these three steps applies to any application which uses machine learning. So here in this case, it is speech is the input, but otherwise you can have image as an input, or text as an input, or some other tables as an input. So then you have to do different kind of input processing. Here we have speech, so we need to do in speech input processing. So this is a block diagram which says the general steps involved in the machine learning. So those who are familiar with machine learning, I think they will clearly understand it. But those who are not familiar with machine learning, they may need to look into this thing and get an idea, because without that, and this will be incomplete. So first thing is whatever data you want to process, you collect it. You make a collection of that, that is audio signal. Then do some processing, that is data conversion, feature extraction, etc. And you prepare your data. So this is a data which is suitable for machine learning algorithm. So you have develop a machine learning algorithm which takes this data, and then you develop a model. We call it as a machine learning model, which can be used further for the real world applications. Now, how do you do the speech processing? So, speech processing, there is one important step that is done, is called as a framing. Okay? Why do we need to do framing? So, framing is a process of breaking the set of samples, that is amplitude values. Set of sample means array of samples of entire audio data X into smaller chunks called as frame. So, what happens here is, if you see this example here, the speech is a continuous, means it changes. The content of the speech changes as the time changes. For example, if I speak, hi, how are you? This is just a 1 second of data, maybe, hi, how are you? But within the 1 second, the content has been changed. Like it, hi, so her, it starts from her, e, her, ho, like that. So if you see the speech signal, the content of the speech signal changes, because what I uttered changes, so the content of the speech signal changes. But when you read this you get it into an array X. So for you, X is one input data, but inside X, you have a continuous variation inside the X based on the time. So you can't handle X at a time, whatever you want to do, because X is having many information inside that, just not one letter, but it's a combination of letters. And you need to get all this combination of letter to understand. But you don't know at what time you have her, at what time you have how, at what time there is R, at what time there is U, etc. So what we do is, whatever the data that we have X, now we need to we cannot handle this as one data, just one piece of data, but we need to take it step by step. So that is what is called as framing. The continuous data that you have, you break it into a smaller portion, smaller chunks, and then you handle one chunk at a time. So here, for example, this portion may be a portion of the signal which say her. This may be E. This may be O. Like that. If the content may change. We don't know. So the because we cannot handle the data is not stationary over the time. So we just take one part of the data at a time. And at this part of the time, it will be mostly stationary. So we assume that this is part of one information. This signal is part of one information. So now this is our one input. So one input that we had, we break it into different frames and we take one frame as one input. So this is the concept of framing. Now when you do framing, you are dividing the area of data into smaller chunks. But if you take mathematically or computationally, how do you divide? So it's like you have array X and it has 8,000 values. Okay. Now what you do is you define a frame size. You say in one frame, I will take only 2,000 values. So if you do that, that means x of 1 to x of 2,000 will be your first frame. Okay. X of 2001 to x of 4,000 will be your second frame and so on. So what you're doing basically is you're indexing the array. It's not. It's just you take instead of taking x of 1 to 8,000 at a time, you take x of 1 to x of 2,000 and take that as one data. Okay, take that. Just so now you have only one data that is 2,000 values containing 2,000 values. So this is your data. Now, what is we do is we don't think, we just consider this as elements of an array and we read it. So instead of reading 8,000, we are reading 2,000. But if you take it from a signal point of view, what happens is this at the edge, if you see, there will be some information which there is a chance that you will lose that information at the edge. It means at the end of the first frame and the beginning of the second frame, at that point you may lose some information. And also there is a chance that the signal won't be in a natural form, because if you see signal always it starts from a slowly, then starts with too much of information, at the end it becomes very silent. So that kind of thing won't be there in a frame. It will be like just as you have cut at that point, and it will be a very hard type of cut. So two things that we need to make sure: one is it's a very smooth cut at the end, and you are not losing any information in the process of cutting. You are not losing any information. So to ensure these two things, we have two concepts. One is a windowing and another concept that we call as a overlapping. Okay, so there are two concepts, windowing and overlapping. So here you can see from here to here it's a one frame. Actually the second frame should start from here, but what we do is we just make it slide uh, to the previous position, and instead of we start taking the next from the previous point. So this much point will be overlapping in two frames, first frame and the second frame. Why we are making this? We are making it to make it. We are doing this to make sure that we are not losing any information at the edges. Even if we store some redundant information, it's okay, but we don't want to lose the information. That is one thing. Now, at the end, and to make it smoother at the end, there is a concept called as a windowing. So it's like you define one function. It's a function. This is a function, window function. Okay, and this is our frame, original frame. So it has been cut. If you can see, it just starts at this point and it ends means abruptly at this point. And this frame, what we do, we want to make this frame smoother. So what we do is we multiply with this window. Okay, and the edges will become smoother. So edges will become smoother. This function, this signal will be easier to handle for further processing. So this is the concept of speech processing. So three things we are doing here. One is framing, one is windowing, and one is overlapping. But if you can think from a computer science point of view, writing a program. So writing a program for framing is nothing but you index it properly. Okay. And the overlapping, how do you do? When you do the index, you make sure that your index starts from some previous position for the next frame. That is overlapping. And how do you make windowing? You have to define this function. It's like you write a formula for this and you store it in an array. So when you apply this formula, you will get some values. Actually, this is nothing but a value. cos pi of as k varies, the value will change for a particular window size L. And you get some set of values. So this is also a set of values, amplitude values, frame, and this is also a set of values. You multiply these two. That's a multiply operation you are doing inside the program. So that is how we do pre-processing inside the program. Then we have feature extraction. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of machine learning. So if you're familiar with concept of machine learning, then you know actually what do you mean by feature extraction. But those are not familiar with. I'll just briefly try to explain what do you mean by feature extraction. Let us say you have an image data. Okay, image data when you read image data of size 100 by 100 resolution. When you read the image data, what you're doing is you're reading it as a set of pixel values. So for example, if it is 100 by 100, and when you read it, you get a matrix. So in the matrix, how many totally how many values will be there? It will be around 10,000 values you have, where each of the element in the matrix, that is each of the value, represent a pixel value. Pixel value is a combination of RGB color. Okay, so what you have data is the set of pixel values. When you look at this pixel value, you as a human being, when you look at this pixel value, it's just a set of numbers. How much you read this, you can't understand. You won't be able to understand what these numbers. So if you, how this number represents something, how the values changes from, for example, if you want to do face recognition, and you take the photo of face one of a person, and you take a photo of another face one of another person, so we have photos of two people. Now, if you take the values which is there inside this, it is just a set of pixel values. And when you look at these two pixel values, even if the face is completely different, but if you look at these numbers, you won't be able to identify, is it really changing, or is there any similarity? You won't be able to identify. So because such kind of data, we refer to it as a raw data, means it is in its natural form. So in speech, what is a raw data? In speech, whatever is there, like for example, the set of amplitude values or the set of frequency values that we have is a raw data. You just look at the data, how much you look at the data, you can't be able to make out what is the content it represents. Okay, like yesterday sir has been explaining about the text. So what is a raw data there? The string itself, the text itself is a raw data. Now, if you want to really get some meaningful information from the raw data using machine learning technique, you can't give this raw data as it is to the machine learning algorithm. There are two reasons for this. One, the size of the raw data will be unnecessarily large. Okay? For example, if you take the image, it will have 10,000 values, just one image. And you're just imagine you're processing the 10,000 images. So how much of data the machine learning algorithm has to deal with? Very complex. Similarly, in the case of speech recognition, the size of the data will be in the crores. Just one audio input. It may be in terms of crores. Then similarly, for the text, you imagine a paragraph, you imagine a sentence. It will be very big. So it will be, so one reason that we don't handle the raw data in the machine learning algorithm is that the size of the data is very large. Second reason is it will have some unnecessary information. For example, if you see the face of a person will be having some background. Photo will be there, will be having some background, will be having the like hairs which may not be very contributing to the information. So there are some less information, there are some things which we don't want for our further processing. So if you want to identify a face of a person, what do you need? What things you need inside the image? You may need, like for example, what is the shape of the eyes, what is the length of the nose, such things, how the eyebrows are. So we are just interested at specific points of region in the image, and using that only easily we can identify which face it is. But if you give the raw data as it is, machine learning algorithm won't be knowing where what information is there. So there we fill that gap. So you have the raw data and you want to give it to the machine learning. So we fill the gap in between by doing some processing and doing the feature extraction. So what we do is we do some mathematical operation on the data Like yesterday, sir was telling, you have a text, you create a bag of words for that, and there are so many other techniques which you can do. So we are doing some processing with the text, and we are trying to see that as a meaningful set of data, which even we will find some meaning in that. Even for example, counting the words, how many times frequency of the words in the corpus, all that looks more meaningful for us, and even you can give that easily to the machine learning algorithm. Same thing we have to do here. In the image, you just take, okay, what is the length of the nose, what is the how the edges are, such kind of information. You do some processing. So if text is the input, how do you do processing? Means what kind of technique you should use? It is NLP. Okay, NLP technique has to be used, and you extract the features from the data. If image is the input, then what we do is we do image processing, that is digital image processing technique we use, and we extract the meaningful information from there. If speech is the input, then what we need to do? We need to extract the information using a technique called as digital signal processing. Okay, so it depends on what is the data you have. To make it simpler to the machine learning algorithm, we need to do, we the programmer need to do some processing, and there are many standard techniques. For example, bag of words finding out that bag of words is a standard technique which is available. You can just make use of that, but you should be knowing why should we use that and how should we use that. Unless you know that, you will not be able to proceed further. Similarly here, if speech is an input, you need to extract some features. How do you extract the features, and what are the features that you need to extract, that you should understand. So at the end of the feature extraction, what happens? The raw data that you have made it simpler, more meaningful for the machine learning algorithm, so that machine learning algorithm has only the needed information, and the size of the information is less. But just to add one point here, machine learning algorithms are simple. Most of the problems in the real world can be solved with the machine learning algorithms. But you, as a programmer, will have some work there, because you need to extract the relevant features and give it to the algorithm. But nowadays, what they are doing is they don't want this trouble, this extracting features and then giving it to the machine learning algorithm, to avoid this trouble, because you don't know exactly what things to extract. You may lose some important information. Such things may happen. So to do that, they have introduced a technique that is deep learning. So in deep learning, what we do is we don't fill the gap. Whatever raw data is there, like whatever image is there, set of pixel value, you give it as it is to the algorithm. That is deep. We call it as deep learning algorithm, which is nothing but a machine learning algorithm. But deep learning algorithms are very complex. It is able to handle the complex data. So that is the difference between machine learning and deep learning. Where machine learning, we do feature extraction and then give it to the algorithm. In deep learning, we don't do feature extraction. We take the raw data as it is and we give it to the algorithm. So deep learning algorithm is becoming successful because it will need more examples. It will need more data to understand the difference, like face of one person, face of second person. If you really want to understand how the face of one person differs from the other, you need lot of examples. You need lot of data in the raw format itself. So, and deep learning, because of the availability of data, we are able to give the data. And because of the advancement in the complex technologies like parallel processing and all, we are able to process it very faster. So these are the two reasons deep learning algorithm is popular. But as much as possible, whenever you have to solve any real application, you should always think the first step. You need not always jump into the deep learning algorithm. So if we can solve, if the data is simple and it can be easily handled with the machine learning algorithm, always go for machine learning algorithm. Only if it is very, means you think you are not, it's very difficult to process or think of feature extracting features, and machine learning algorithms are not capable, then only it's needed to go for the deep learning algorithm. That is just to add one point. So here what we were discussing is, just to keep you in line with the talk, we are actually discussing the techniques which is involved in automatic speech recognition technique, which has three major steps: input, speech processing, feature extraction, and classification. Speech processing involves framing, windowing, and overlapping. Then we are talking about feature extraction, which is generally applies for any machine learning application. So here now I'm summarizing, like you have an audio file as a flow chart. You have an audio file. So what you do in the program is you read the audio file. When you read the audio file, you get a vector, or we call it as an array. It's nothing but an array. Then we apply the concept of framing. We break the array into smaller chunks. Then we calculate feature for a frame. See, now you should understand whatever audio data you had read, which is very long, was your input, but now you have broken it into number of frames. So one audio data you might have broken into 10 frames. Now you are handling one frame at a time. So your focus of point is just that one frame. So whatever we are doing, we are just doing for that one frame. We are calculating feature for that frame, and then we store that feature inside the database, and that is repeated. You take the next frame and then calculate the feature, next frame, calculate the feature, and so on. Then you take the next audio file, you create your database, and that database will be suitable for the machine learning algorithm. So this is all about how the feature extraction is done. So this is one critical, means this is one section where we become very means we become not, but we are not comfortable with, especially computer science students, when it comes to speech recognition. So that is the features, to understand all those features, because these are the like how natural language processing has a technique bag of words, which is a standard technique for extracting features from a text. Similarly, these are the standard techniques for extracting features from a speech audio. Okay, so these are the defined procedures, and you can use any. You have to, if you want to use an ASR application, if you want to develop, you have to use some of these features. It depends on what kind of application. So it depends on what features are suitable for your application. So based on the application that you you have a combination of these features, or you can derive your own feature extraction technique. That is also possible. So if you belong to electronics or electrical branch background, you can even think of deriving a new feature, understanding the signal, how significant it could be. To give a glimpse, like to give an idea of like how a feature extraction procedure looks like. So just read this first feature extraction technique, null frequency, Sebstral coefficient. Now, what is this technique is? This technique is derived. It's completely a mathematical procedure, mathematical algorithm. Now, this technique is derived based on the concept like how human hear something. Like when a sound reaches to our ear, inside the ear there are actually many filters inside the ear, which is able to filter that sound into different frequency components, and take and try to understand what is the sound, and then we get the meaning out of that. So in this technique, they are trying to simulate that kind of concept, the perception based hearing that we have, the human, that kind of concept they are trying to formulate it as a in a mathematical procedure. And so they believe that whenever a sound reaches to human ear, after filtering, what you get, the things that could be represented as a coefficient. We call it as a MFCC, or Bell-Sebstral coefficient. So that coefficient will represent the actual value. For example, I speak ha, ha. So the coefficient that you get will represent the value ha. So if I change the letter ba, then the coefficient that you get will be different. So that coefficient values will change as the letter change, or as the utterance change, and it represents the actual value. So that is how this is derived. And similar to that, based on the different domain knowledge and concept behind the uh, human ear, human ear, that is human hearing procedure. Based on that, there are different feature extraction techniques which are derived, which are being researched and which are being derived by the researchers, and this could be used. So we can use these techniques, and we can have some modification if we can do. But otherwise, most of these techniques are very good and very efficient one. But you need to do some lot of trial and error, maybe, to understand what features are suitable for your application. That is it. So this is just to give a glimpse on how this looks like feature extraction technique. Don't be scared. See, this is what happens whenever computer science students read some paper or look at some concept. As soon as some mathematical formula comes, they will get scared of that, and they will just stop. No, this is not for me. So yeah, I request that please don't feel that. You just look at the algorithm, spend some, just look at the formula. It's really not very complex. Spend some time in that, and you need not get each and everything inside that, but at least try to understand the basic thing, and then actually programming this MFCC. Even if you want to program the entire algorithm, you can easily do it using the built-in available function. It's not difficult. But just look at this formula. For example, this x of n is an input that you have. As I told, it's a sequence of sample values, array of sample values. So the first step that we do in MFCC is for each frame that we have, we calculate DFT coefficient. What is DFT? This I have already told. It is discrete Fourier transform. And what it does, it converts a time domain signal into a frequency domain signal. So this I already explained. So this x of m that you have is a time domain signal, and x of m that you have is a frequency domain signal. That means if I say x of 1, it gives me the value of an amplitude at sample number 1. If I say x, this capital X of 1, it gives me the magnitude of a frequency component, frequency 1. Okay. So like this, this formula can be calculated, and then we calculate the power spectrum for this, and then we have the defined triangular filter bank filters, triangular series of triangular filters. Then we do some L spacing, and then finally we do again inverse. Means again you come back from frequency domain to time domain. Again you come back, and then at the end you get some set of coefficients. So Ci, this represents the coefficient. So one thing is that just try to, for a computer science student, I'm saying if you're electronic or electrical, you must try to understand the entire algorithm in deeply. But if you're a computer science student and you're not comfortable with like those formulas and understanding actually what it is, because it needs some knowledge about the subject, that is digital signal processing. If you're not comfortable with, you can just try to get the idea of that and try to see what is the input and what is the output. So whenever a computer science student sees something, an algorithm or whatever, first thing that you should focus is what is the input and what is the output. Once you understand that, you can see how the input changes to output. So what formula changes the input to output, and then it becomes easier to implement. So in reality, if you are doing any application or if you are doing any research, please understand you are not going to implement this algorithm. You need not implement this algorithm, because there are many available built-in functions, built-in tools available already in the market. You can use those tools, which are very standard algorithms derived for MFCC. So you just need to know when should I call MFCC function, what parameters need to be passed, and what it returns to you. So how it matters to you. Those things you should understand. So now you at least know that you need to have a MFCC function at some point of time in ASR, and what is the input for a MFCC function? This is your signal. Okay, signal that you have got after framing is the input to your MFCC signal. Then what is the output that it gives? It gives you some coefficients. We call it as MFCC, melt frequency circle coefficient. So usually, when you do MFCC, it will give you 30. It will use 13 triangular filters. So there will be 13 coefficients. Okay, that you get. So if you, for example, if you give one frame of 2000 values, amplitude values, so you give input a frame of 2000 amplitude values, and you get the output that is 13 coefficient. So these 13 coefficients are a compact representation of these 2000 values, and it significantly depends on what is the content that is being uttered, means what letter has been spoken inside that part of the audio. Based on that, the value of those 13 coefficients will be changing. I hope you're getting my point. So it is also a method of compression, like raw data, you're compressing into a set of simpler coefficient values. Similarly, you have linear predictive coefficient. I'm not going into the detail because it is too much mathematically and may not be necessary to understand all those things. But you should know that these are the features available in the in the area of the speech recognition. And whenever you need, you should be able to look at this and use this. So that much capability must be there. So you should be able to look at it and you should be able to use it inside your program. Okay. So if you want to use it, you should understand, you should know, like for example, you now understand MFCC, what it takes as input and what is output. Similarly, you should know what is linear predictive coefficient, what it takes input and what is output. So that thing you must understand about this. Once you understand that, then you will be able to use it for in a better way. Here, one MATLAB example is given. Like this is a function which reads the file, audio file, and what it returns in turn is an array. So S is an array, what we were referring to as X in the slide. That is nothing but yes here. S is an array. Now size of the array depends on what is the length of the audio file. So now here you define, okay, what is the size of the frame that you want. So here they are defined as 2048, and how much should be overlapped. So for example, 1 to 2048 will be your first frame. So second frame from where it will start, instead of starting from 2049, you are starting it from 8000 overlap, means 2048 minus 800, sorry. So it will start somewhere at 1200 position. So based on how much overlapping you are defined, based on that. Now these are some of the formulas. See, you once you understand how framing is done, windowing is done, overlapping is done, you can write all those formulas by yourself, and you can actually define the set of frames. Then for each frame, see, this content of each frame is decided here. For S, from which index to which index should be stored in which frame. So frame is nothing but frames is a sequence of frame where each frame is a set of 2048 values. For example, if you get 10 frames, then this data structure, that is frames will be of size 10 rows and how many columns? 2048 columns. And whenever you implement a program, you should, even if you're using a code which is available in the Google, you must understand the data structure, each of the variable, what is the size of that array. Because unless you understand that, you will not understand further like how it is used. So here you clearly understand that frame is of size. How many number of frames are there? That is NV frames. We have NV frames, number of frames. So the size of these frames will be NV frames by capital N. That capital N is nothing but 2048. So this I have given a glimpse like how programming happens. Means till now it was a black box for you. You didn't know where it starts, how you proceed further. But now at least you know that it's programming point of view. It is simple. You read an audio file, you get an array, then you break it into frames, then you process each frame. And for processing each frame, first thing that you need to do is you extract those features, which is built-in functions are available. I have not written the built-in function here, but you can get it. This is a MATLAB example. So you need to search and you will get it from the internet. So here the output that I have mentioned. So after doing all these frames, breaking all the frames and computing the feature, this is how your data looks like now. Okay. So what you had, the sequence of 1 lakh values, 2 lakh values and all that is now simplified into this format. So here you have a frame 1, and this frame 1 has, see, this first row represent the content of frame 1. Please understand. First row represent the content of frame 1. Content means the coefficient. After feature extraction, what are the features that is associated with the first frame is represented by the first. Then this is the second frame. So this is the MFCC coefficient 1, first column, MFCC coefficient 2, 3 and so on. So this first frame may correspond to 1, 5. The second frame, like here, I think I have randomly labeled it just for your understanding. So the first 4 frames, maybe it belongs to 1 file, and that 1 file, not 1 file, maybe all of these frames belongs to 1 file, but the content of this frame differs. It depends on what is the content that is spoken. For example, in the first 4 frames, you are saying, in the 5th frame it starts were, okay. In the 6th frame, in the 10th frame it starts some other letter, because it's a sequence of letter changes as the time changes. So content of frame changes. So the label, so it's when you're going for a machine learning algorithm, this is the input that you're going to give to the machine learning algorithm. But what is the output that you're expecting from the machine learning algorithm, that we refer to as a label. So for each frame, you are labeling it. So this label 1 may denote just, this is a random example. This label 1 may denote a letter A. Okay, that means the content of this frame. You are telling the machine learning algorithm that the content of the frame 1 is this, that is 13 MFCC coefficient, and the label of the first frame is A. Okay. Now, what machine learning algorithm? So similarly for all other frames, what machine learning algorithm has to do? It has to understand the relationship between this data, 13 coefficient, 12 coefficient, it is sorry, and the label 1. Means if this data changes, how this label changes. What is the relation? If, but please don't do it by yourself, because you will never be able to analyze. These numbers are very complex for a human being to understand, but for computer it will somehow derive, because it works mathematically. It will somehow derive. So what it will do is it will try to derive the relationship between this input and this output, and once it gets a relationship, a standard, in a standard method, it can generalize it. So if the input is like this, output will be like this. It will generalize it as a function. So that is what machine learning does. It derives a function. For an input, how the output changes. What is that function? So function is unknown in the beginning, and once it analyzes the data, it will try to standardize the relationship to some function. That is what is done. So this is your data now. Okay, so speech audio file, what we had, we did framing, we did windowing, we did overlapping, we did feature extraction, and after feature extraction you get a data something like this. Now this is, once it comes to this format, then you can go for the machine learning algorithm. Please remember, any kind of application that you're doing, maybe it's a text processing, maybe it's a image processing, or maybe it's audio processing, maybe it's any other table, you do all those pre-processing based on the type of data that you have, and finally you bring it into this format. So at this point, after this point, everything becomes common for whatever the application. After this point, the technique is common. Before this point, the technique depends on what is the data. So before this point, it depends. If the speech data, you need to do speech processing. Text data, you need to do natural language processing. Image data, you need to do image processing. So before this point, technique changes. But after this point, machine learning algorithm works in the same way. There is no difference for the machine learning algorithm. Because what machine learning algorithm needs is only, it doesn't know why you're doing this. Are you doing speech recognition? Are you doing image recognition? It doesn't know. It need not know. Only thing it should know is what is the input and what is the output, and it will try to derive the relationship between input and output. Only you know that this one means a, okay, this two means o, or whatever. So only you know as a programmer. Machine learning algorithm will not necessarily know that. It has to just know what is X and what is Y, what is the input, what is the output, and it will try to derive the relationship between that. So this is up to machine learning feature extraction. This I have tried to visualize. Whatever I have drawn here, whatever I have written here, this is one way of looking at the data, because all these are numbers, difficult to understand. Now you try to plot it and you try to see the things. So what I've done is plotted the data here. So here I have taken the MSCC features of different utterances, which is a, it's for Kannada language that I had done a, e, u, a, and o. So with different colors. So I have taken the MSCC features of the frames that belongs to a, labeled as 1. I have taken the MFCC features of frames that belongs to E, labeled as 2. And I have taken the, so whenever it is a label 1, I will plot it with red color. Whenever it is label 2, I will plot it with a circle blue color. Whenever it is label 3, means you just look at this data, okay, you don't know what is this, whatever. So what you do is you plot this data, only the first three coefficient, because it is three-dimensional graph that we have, we cannot plot beyond that. So maximum is 3 dimensions. So you take these 3 points, this value you will see in x-axis, this value in y-axis, and this value in z-axis. So plot these 3 values, and because it is label 1, you plot it as a red color. If it is a label 2, you plot it as a blue color. And just imagine you don't know about this. So when you see here, this red color data has come together. So this data, so all the data with same colors are coming together. It means that this MFCC feature values for label 1 are similar. Like MFCC feature values for label 2 is also similar. means they are correlated with each other. So some kind of visualization you are able to understand by plotting this graph. This can be done for all the features too, because these numbers we can't see anything from these numbers. Are they really significant MFCC features? Are they really making some distinction between big distinction between the different utterances? You can't make out that using looking at this. So what we do is we do some visualization and try to see. Yes. So now you can say yes. MFCC features for a significantly is separate in a separate region, means it can clearly identify that it is letter A. Okay. Now we go. So what we understood is first thing is speech pre-processing, then feature extraction. Now it is a classification technique. This is common for any application. So classification is a supervised machine learning technique. What is classification does is given a data, it will tell you okay what is a label. So imagine this is you are randomly picking one data. Let us say frame 5. Okay, and giving it to machine learning algorithm, it should tell you what is the label, means it should tell you that it is 2. And if it tells you that it is 2, you know that 2 is for letter E or whatever. So looking at, so now you can understand, okay, what is that input, what is that test data. So that is called as testing. Now classification is trying to, given the input, it will assign a class label for that. So in the audio automatic speech recognition, the objective is that what is the input that we have? Maybe it may be a letter, it may be a word, it may be a sentence, it may be a. So at the basic level, what we do is very basic level, because the entire audio we can't process it at a time. We break it into frames. So each frame may represent a one phoneme or one letter. So you are actually identifying just one letter or using a classification technique. So this gives an overall methodology for classification technique. This is your input. You do some pre-processing and you extract the features. You give those features to the machine learning algorithm, and it will learn the relationship between input and output. Based on that, it will create a function. We call it as a machine learning model. Now, once this machine learning model is ready, so given a text and the corresponding, given an input and the corresponding label, that is X and Y, feature vectors, feature vectors are given to the machine learning algorithm. It creates a model. Once this model is ready, at any point of time in the future, when you give a new audio, okay, it has to again compute the feature, and then that feature, when it is given to machine learning model, it will tell you what is that letter. Is it A, E, O, or that? Okay, so this works similarly for any kind of application, not just machine learning algorithm. Here we have. If you want like Python code, that is, if you want to implement ASR using Python, we have a library that is called as Librosa library, a Python package for music and audio analysis. Just to give you an view, means analysis of that, how it looks like, means the code. I don't know whether you can see it clearly, but this has been developed by my student, MTech student. She has worked in this speech disorder area. So here you import the Librosa library, and see here, this Librosa library, you have a function called as load, which will do the reading. It will read the file, and it will return the output. So you can clearly see there are two outputs here. One is X. X is nothing but the array of sample values. And then we have a sampling rate. So it will tell you, because while reading itself, it will be decided what has to be the sampling rate. And to do any further processing, you should be knowing what is the sampling rate. Because only by knowing that, you know exactly how many samples are there within a 1 second of data and so on. So once you have this array, then all that processing, see here you have a function, let us say short time Fourier transform function is there, which is ready-made built-in function. Then you have a MFCC function here, which is available in the Librosa library .feature.mfcc function. So like that, in the library you have many functions available, and using all those functions you can convert. So here you get a MFCC coefficients. You have converted your array X into set of MFCC coefficients, and those MFCC coefficients, like it has been extracted for all the feature I, E, all those aksharas in Kannada language. and then corresponding labels has been assigned, like 0 for the akshara and 1 for akshara and so on. Labels are assigned, and after that we start. Once the features are ready, features will be in this format. So this is X, which is a very set of all feature values, and after that, this is just to give you a glimpse. Okay, so here she has displayed it in a very clear way. So this is the one frame. This is the content of one frame which belongs to akshara a. This is the content of another frame which belongs to akshara a, and so on. So this is your data now after feature extraction, and this then you start machine learning. So machine learning is done using a library, that is SK scikit-learn, which has different algorithm. Again, she has used SVM, deep learning algorithm, ANN, and then it's a regular procedure like what we do for machine learning. Whatever data you have, you load it, and then you divide it into train and test, and then you start transforming, normalizing, and then calling the function. So this is directly you call that function support vector machine algorithm, which will do that training. Means it will derive the relationship between input and output. So you have different machine learning algorithms like support vector machine is there, artificial neural network is there, Bayesian classifier is there, and so on. So here, the every algorithm has an objective that it has to. All the algorithm has the same objective, like it has to derive the relationship between the input and output. So what is the relationship between the input and output? But the way of deriving that relationship will be different. So support vector machine uses the concept of hyperplane. Artificial neural network uses the concept of the transformation activation functions. And so like that, the way in which it derives the relationship between input and output will be different. But it does the same thing. Every algorithm does the same thing. And we can try with different algorithm and see which works better for our application. Now one more, so this has been done for a basic unit of utterance. Like one frame says, okay, it is a or e or u. But what is our objective? We want to identify the entire word, like hi. So ha, e, hi. So hi, we want to understand hi, how are you? Entire word or entire sentence. Now what we have done till now is just processing one frame and identify what is that. It's what is a phoneme, that is it. Now you should combine all those together, means in the sequence in which it comes, and you should try to understand what is a word spoken or what is a sentence spoken or what is that. So there comes hidden Markov model. The hidden Markov model, because it is a statistical model, it is a chain, means it's nothing but it works for a sequential data. So whatever we speak, it depends. First is then is then is the. So which is first, which is, so order matters there, and it's a sequential data. Only if you process in that sequence and you understand, then only you can understand the meaning of a word. Otherwise, you cannot understand what is that word. So what we do here is whatever output that you get from one field, you combine it and you try to understand what is that word spoken or what is that sentence spoken. So this is has been explained yesterday very clearly by Dr. Roshan Fernandez. He has given a very detailed explanation on this. But I just wanted to link how hidden Markov model comes into picture, because in natural language processing also you are handling a text which is a sequential information. Here also you are handling a spoken utterance which is a sequential information. You can actually, so this is hidden Markov model defined for one akshara, one verb, like the utterance verb. This is a, this is na. Now what you can do to make it meaningful, you combine this HMM of these three models together, and you understand that okay, it is one. So it is probabilistic model. So it depends on which probability is high. Based on that, it will declare that okay, this is that word. So if you give the same input to this model, hidden Markov model, this hidden Markov model, if this hidden Markov model gives you high output, then we can say that the input is the utter word is 1. If this hidden Markov model gives you the high probability, then we say that uttered model is 2. So like that, hidden Markov model makes it easy to create the word model or the sentence model. Similarly, the language model. This is the mathematics behind hidden Markov model. I'm not going into the detail. You please go through this. If you, it's not difficult. It's not difficult. Just please don't be scared of this algorithm, this formula. It's very simple formula. It's a Gaussian distribution formula. You just have to look at the terms. That's all. Nothing is complex here. Okay, you have studied probability and statistics subject, and with that, it should be very easy for you to understand. Actually, you just have to see it. That's all. And so this similarly, you create a language model, like you identify what is the sequence of words spoken, again based on the probability concept. So which gives you the highest probability. Based on that, we declare, okay, this is a particular word spoken or language spoken. So this is the, so I'm not going into the detail of this because this is same as how we do for a natural language processing. Because once you identify this is na, means you have identified the letters actually. So once you identify the letters, that means you can now understand what, now you can use natural language processing concept and you can understand what is a word spoken or a sentence spoken. So here it gets linked, that is ASR and NLP. What we have understood till now is automatic speech recognition is one of the sophisticated area in computing. If you can think of all the gadgets just operating with automatic speech recognition, that will be the best thing that we can have in the field of computing. But at the same time, it's very complex. And there are many real-time applications of ASR which you can think of. Anything which you see day to day around you, it can be developed using ASR. Basic methodology, we have studied, we have discussed the basic methodology describing the ASR technique, and I have also given you some practical, like just code, so that you understand that coding is not difficult, so difficult, you can do it. It's not it's not like beyond the reach, but you just have to look at the things, what is the data and so on. You can at least understand the code, and you can think of developing some application. But there are challenges. Why there are challenges? Because audio data is complex to understand. Because what is there, because the values that is there in the array S and what is actually it means, it's difficult to understand that. Usually the voice will have noise in the background. So now any because as the noise changes in the background, if I, for example, if I switch off the fan, if someone is recording my sound, the content that you will get will be different. If I switch on the fan, that fan sound and my sound will be mixed together, so there will be some impact and the sinusoidal wave will change. So what sinusoidal wave that you get is a mixture of all the things that is being recorded together. Maybe some has high compact, some has low compact. So you must use some efficient techniques for eliminating the effect of background noise. You cannot completely eliminate it, but some effect can be reduced. And then voice changes with the mood, the health. Like I speak, if I am in a very good mood, I'll speak in a one way. If I am not in a good mood, I'll speak in another way. So then the content changes. If you record my sound when I started this speech, if you would have recorded my sound, that content will be different. At the same content, if I speak again now, based on my mood, the content, definitely the value sample values will change, or the sinusoidal wave will change because of the mood, because of the other external factors. Then, being a computer science big challenges, it's difficult to understand DSP techniques. So one thing is one way is you collaborate with other branch people, like other branch students, and make a group, and so that some part which you find difficult they can handle, and like that you can continue. So so now I have completely given an idea on speech recognition, but please understand, speech is a type of sound, okay? And when you make a meaningful sound, it becomes speech. But there are other form of sounds. So whatever techniques I have told will be applied, can be easily applied for any other types of sounds. It's not just speech, okay? It can be any other type of sounds. For example, you can take a record or a sound of a voice of a patient who is facing some problem with speaking, like some problem in the throat, and you can try to analyze how the sound changes if what kind of problem he has, just looking at the sound. That is one thing we can think of. Then emotion, am I speaking with a happy mood, sad mood? That thing can be done. Then you can see, like for example, cancer patient is there, can you make out with the sound how the sound changes for a cancer patient. Then voice biometric, we have in the college, we have face biometric. Similarly, can we have voice biometric, because that is one comfortable way of interacting with the computer. So music analysis, melody detection. So this is all these techniques will be same, okay? Only the objective differs. Objective differs means what you're looking for in the data. Are you looking for the word? Are you looking for the emotion? Are you looking for the speaker identity? Are you looking for the background noise? So what are you looking for? That will be different. All the techniques will be same. So music analysis, which we have worked. So we have worked in speech disorder detection. We have worked in music analysis, melody detection. Given a song, you give a song and you identify what is a raga in which that song is played, or what is the instrument in which the song is played. So this kind of application will be very useful for automatic indexing of the music. If you have many music files in your folders and you want to automatically index it into different folders, so you just indexing based on the raga. So all the files of similar ragas will be there in one folder, like that. A sophisticated kind of application. Then environment scene detection, like you want to analyze whether the sound is a market sound, or it's a closed room sound, or it's a classroom sound, what kind of environment it is. Then animal and bird detection, so wild in jungle applications and all, this will be very useful. You because those who are doing research and all, they want to know when a new bird sound they hear, how it is familiar with, like how it is similar to what kind of sounds that we already have, or you want to detect automatically, and you want to alert. For example, one of my students has were doing a project which they where they wanted to detect the intrusion of monkeys in the farm based on the sound. So monkeys enter, they don't make sound, but in case, but there will be some changes in the way they walk, or maybe there will be some changes in the environment scene. So based on that chain, they want to alert to the farmer that some intrusion has been done. So that is also one application. Then you want to understand the language. If someone starts suddenly talking, for example, if you're not familiar with let us say ODC language, and someone just starts talking with ODC language, you first of all you don't know which language it is. So that is one thing. Then after you know, okay, this language, you don't know what they are speaking. So if we can have a system which can automatically understand the language, the accent at which people are talking, and what contents are being spoken. So that is, so there are many other directions also. So these directions are like not speech as a data, it can be any sound as a data, but the techniques that we use will be almost similar. Okay? The way in which you do pre-processing, feature extraction, and classification almost similar. So what next? Now, after hearing this, I think if you have got some interest in this topic, that is ASR, so it's time to contribute. You can either go for it, because now it's a time where we are free most of the, and it's a high time that we upgrade our skill and we focus with a very determined focus, not just that attending all the webinars and just closing it after that, not like that. Have some objective and have some determination, and think of how do you really want to proceed, because now things are becoming more open. People are so many webinars and so many materials you have, but now it's your time to think what you want to do, how you want to contribute. So either you can contribute in a research area, or you can contribute in a like mobile application. Recently, government is also focusing very much on the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and focusing on having mobile applications, Indian mobile application, which work with a large scale and satisfying all the non-functional parameters, not just the functional, means scale, speed, quality, reliability, and so on. So that is one thing. Now you can either go for research area or mobile application. Uh, how do you contribute? So first thing is you look around, you think of the, just look around, you see so many problems are there in the society, and you think of solutions which you can solve, and the challenges in the society. Then once you get an idea in your mind, you what you do next is you most of the application now you can think of has to be machine learning at least 80% of them has to be machine learning. So you think of what is the data which is involved, how to collect the data which is available. For example, if you talk about speech recognition, you can create your own data set recording in a noise less room, or you can have, there are many standard benchmark data sets available. Just give in the Google speech recognition standard benchmark data set. You will get a link of all the benchmark data set. But the problem there is, when we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, we want to do some contribution which is related to Indian languages, which helps Indians and which can be used with by a layman who do not know English. We want them to operate the gadgets with their own languages. So how can we contribute? Because if most of the standard benchmark data set, if you see, it is not up to, like, it is not for Indian languages. It is created for English, French, and so many Chinese, Japanese languages, but not for Indian languages. There are very few attempts made available, but you can think of really contributing in this area. So in the YouTube, for example, you have YouTube videos in the Kannada language or some other all the other languages, films and all. So you can extract the audio from there and start creating your own data set. That also can be done. But whatever contribution you do, you see that it's going in a professional way. Means it can be scaled further. You're doing some 10 recordings, then tomorrow you do 20 and 100 recordings, and you try to publish it in some public open platform so that others can use it and they can continue further. So see, these are the different ways we can contribute to the nation. And then you learn the techniques. I have given a glimpse on what how it works. Now I think you can search on YouTube videos or Coursera, the MOOC courses. So for automatic speech recognition, exactly, there are no many MOOC courses, but you can refer to some materials, online materials by some of the lecturers. And also, like in the IIT Swayam, you can, I think, get out a speech digital signal processing clear subject in that. And in deep learning, if you want to go, there in Coursera you have a topic that is sequence models, which talks about how deep learning can be used. So there need not do any feature extraction. Directly raw data converted into frequency domain, that is spectrogram, you can give it to the deep learning. So they have clearly explained how it can be done and how it can be practically applied. So that thing is one. Then learning tools are important. So Python is one of the now like most popular tools that you can think of. It makes things easier for from programming point of view. So these are things that you can do further to contribute. And also I want to just add, like, IISc, that is Bangalore. They are doing a research for COVID-19 to identify COVID-19 patient with the swara, that is voice, a voice of a patient. They call it as a co-swara project. So it is there. If you want, you can see in the internet, co-swara project by IISc, and they want to analyze the sounds of a healthy patient, and also because you want to identify, given a sound, is it a healthy patient or is it a COVID-19 patient? So COVID-19 patient, they have to get it from the patient who is admitted in the hospital, from the support of the government. But healthy patient, you can they want to collect it, different types of healthy patients from all over India and all over the world. So they have created a website where you can contribute your voice and giving all other information. Just go to that website, contribute your voice, so that they will get the data, because it's our own Indian institution who is developing. So it will be good if we all contribute to that. You contribute your voice, and it will become a part of their data. And so because the data set is larger, means they can be more confident on their applications. That is one thing I want to add. Last thing that I want to say is you can join with us. We have in MC department, we have a VGST funded lab, VGST Government of Karnataka, Vision Group of Science and Technology. The lab is entitled Center of Innovation for Studies on Automatic Natural Language Processing and Speech Disorder Problems in Kannada Language. So we are doing projects on specifically in this area, that is speech disorder, natural language processing for local language, that is Kannada language. So the project like automatic speech disorder detection, automatic speech therapy. Speech therapy is a kid who is having problem in talking, maybe due to many other reasons, usually visit the doctors very frequently. They train the kids how to speak, and it's a very time consuming task. So if you can think of an application which can train the kids, if, like it will utter something, if that utterance is not right, computer will give feedback that it is not right, please utter it like this, then the kid will utter again. So that kind of interactive mechanism for kid to get trained by the computer. So the kid need not visit the doctors frequently. It will reduce a burden for the doctor. So that is speech therapy. Then we have Kannada language document translation understanding, which is being done by the research scholars. NLP applications in healthcare. So this is what I told. Healthcare has many different aspects. Like speech disorder is one of the application in the healthcare, and also NLP applications, chatbot development. So these are the areas which we have started working, and we are doing work on that. Those who wants to join with us in working for this area, serious means with a determination, because it's not like any other area which you just jump directly and get some output. It needs some patience to understand, to proceed further. But it's a very promising area, even from a scope of point of view, and also from the knowledge point of view that you get. Once you get into this area, you can go into any other area very easily. Even if you don't get any output here, jumping to other area will become very easy, like machine learning area. Um, and we are also associated with the Atal Incubation Center, which is situated at MITTE for product development. So you can, even if you are interested at developing products which is related to any of these area, you can join with us. We have the lab is located in NCA, and members are Dr. Surinder Shetty, he is the principal investigator for the project, usually from Department of MCA. Myself as a co-principal investigator, and Shabari Shetty, she is working as a research scholar that is under Dr. Surinder Shetty, and Mrs. Savita from Department of CSC, and Mrs. Sarita from Department of MC, and working under my guidance in the area of especially at the Kannada language Kannada language document translation and NLP applications in healthcare. So if you want to join, maybe you're a faculty or a student, maybe you want to do a research or you want to do an application development, you can join with us. If you have any specific things to communicate, you can send me an email. Please, those students, if you want to really want to join for product development, I request you to send a resume describing yourself and what projects you have done, what languages like Python, Android, what languages you are familiar with. You send a resume to my email ID sarika.hegde@pt.edu.in. If you are determined to work in these area with a determinate duration of at least 1 month, okay, we will give you an internship certificates from either from the research lab or from the Atal Incubation Center, which will be valid for your for submission purpose also. So you send me an email ID to either sarika.hegde or hegdesarika@gmail.com. This is what I wanted to convey. Um, so that's all. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat section, ma'am. Which
Okay.
framing technique is more efficient, windowing or overlapping?
Framing technique is separate, windowing is separate, and overlapping is separate. Framing just means you cut the audio into set of frames. In addition to that, you have to do windowing. In addition to that, you have to do overlapping. So it is not that you choose. You have to use all things.
The question answer section is open. If anyone has any queries, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can place a question in the chat section. Ma'am, there's a question. Is it necessary to learn MATLAB or Python is enough?
You can go for either MATLAB or Python. Python is best, I think, because MATLAB has a licensing problem, means purchasing needed. But Python is an open source, so it's always better to go for open source. Python is enough.
Okay. Any more questions? So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this interesting and informative session. I'm sure that people who are working in this area will have gotten more details about it, and people who are new to it also will have interest to explore this particular area for their research purpose. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity, and thank you all the participants for uh, listening. And I just wish that the information will be very useful to you in some way or the other. Maybe even if you are working in other area, it will give you some input that will be useful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.